Welcome back, Marathon Money Future One Percenters. We're sitting here with David BNC. A lot of you people was asking me when is he coming on. You know, one of the questions I thought was funny is he trying to be the Berkshire Hathaway. Because the acquisition, the crypto, the different things when we talked last time privately, that you have told me you've been a part of and what you're trying to do, which is amazing. I usually think people with the mindset of helping other people make money is usually the fastest way to really get that true notoriety in life, and also to really point like you're trying to be the best company out there. But I'll let David start introducing what he got going on with BNC. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Kenny, thank you for having me. Listen, it's as you said, when we first chatted about this, like I think it's a exciting time in the crypto markets. I've been around this for a long time, and really, what I'm excited about is from the very beginning of my time in crypto, I saw the opportunity to bring together kind of the capital markets with the crypto markets. And so I was working at a bank, I worked at a hedge fund, I'd been investing in almost every stock market in the world. But I started my career at the beginning of the financial crisis, and I was looking for something more and something that was more meaningful. And so when I first learned about Bitcoin, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was really like a believer from the start. I tried to get a lot of other people around me in the hedge fund world and banking world into crypto to open their eyes to it. And then eventually I left the hedge fund and I went all in. And this was early 2014. First thing I tried to do was set up a company called Solid X Partners and tried to create a Bitcoin ETF and help create the derivative side using total return swaps, which was a product that I traded in my Wall Street career. But with the ETF, the goal was to give people an easy way through the stock market to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and get exposure to, what I was very excited about. And so, unfortunately, it was a bit too early. From when I started, I'd been saying with my team, like, all right, this might take a couple years, it might take 10 years, it might take a couple $1,000,000, and we still might not get it approved. Ultimately, that's what happened with SolidX. We weren't able to get the ETF across, but last year, a bunch of Bitcoin ETFs were finally introduced to the market. So now, as the space had evolved, I also later in one of the next cycles, and I saw the opportunity to take companies public in the crypto world. I took my next company public, Galaxy Digital, which was a larger version, kind of a crypto investment bank focused entirely on digital assets. But the U.S. markets were closed then, so we took it public in Canada, and we found that was the only viable means to take a crypto-related business public and allow investors to get exposure to it. And then in the past year, really, as the regulatory environments improved, we saw the opportunity through a number of recent IPOs we can get into, and through this digital asset treasury opportunity to really introduce kind of a new and what I think is really one of the best ways for investors to get access to crypto in a way that they haven't been able to till now.
Man, that's amazing. I think your journey have proven to you that you are probably a great fit to lead this company. I saw you did like a whole bunch of acquisitions. Let me see. I have it rated Fat Panda. You guys got for like 18 million Canadian. So what was the reason to acquire that?
I can't take credit for that. That actually preceded me before I stepped into the CEO role. And I guess stepping back, one of the ways I think about it is, a lot of the kind of small cap companies that are in the public markets, the public markets come with a lot of difficulties. It's a different game than the private markets. I've been an angel investor myself, a VC, and a public market investor, and really doing investing in almost every market across the world, like I said earlier. And running a company in the public markets takes a lot more. There's a lot of expenses. There's a lot of kind of understanding of fiduciary duties, responsibilities, having a board in place from an auditing perspective, accounting, all of those different functions. And so CEA Industries, prior to my involvement, the team had been looking for ways to kind of grow the business. They were excited about the opportunity, and Fat Panda had been performing well and continues to. So they had just made the acquisition, and not long after, we had been in conversations with the management team about getting involved, raising a PIPE transaction, and for me to step in as the CEO of leading this new treasury strategy. And so that's really, we're going through kind of a branding exercise where the treasury division of the company is known as BNB Network Company. So often I refer to the overall company as that because, at a high level, that's become the most important part of the business today.
Man, so I'm pretty sure you guys are going to start trying to be like a Berkshire Hathaway, where you're acquiring, where you're also stepping into other companies, maybe buying 30-40% of it. Because I know you guys have a lot of BNC, BNB crypto. You guys, what was the reason behind that purchase to really step into there?
Sure. So I guess a good starting point, just because there might be some people that aren't that familiar with Michael Saylor and what he's done with MicroStrategy over the last 5 years.
Correct.
Essentially, Michael Saylor is the guy who'd been running a software business from the .com era, and he'd run a successful software business, then he'd run an unsuccessful software business, but the business had been sitting around and hadn't really seen much growth about 5 years ago. And it was valued, I think, around $1 billion. And they had $400 million of cash on the balance sheet. So he had, through a different transaction with some friends that I know in the crypto space, he had sold a domain, which opened his eyes to just how much opportunity was within the crypto space. So he really got down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And he decided to take the $400 million of cash sitting on the balance sheet and to convert it into Bitcoin. So I think the initial purchase was $250 million, but ultimately over a short period of time, he turned the $400 million of cash into Bitcoin. The stock rewarded him for doing that, and the stock traded up. And then he started this flywheel process where he sold the equity when it was trading at a premium and bought more Bitcoin. And the market continued to get excited about that. So now, over the last 5 years, he's managed to accumulate over 3% of the Bitcoin supply. Over $75 billion worth of Bitcoin, and the company is valued at over $100 billion today. And so it was initially called MicroStrategy. He rebranded it to Strategy. So now in the past year or two, first of all, for a couple of years, he's been educating other public company CEOs, CFOs, private company treasurers, people that are on endowment funds. He runs something called Bitcoin for Corporates down in Orlando. And he's been teaching people about the merits of holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet instead of fiat currency. So in the last year or two, that strategy has really spread to a number of other companies around the world, where we've seen them employ a similar strategy, employing or deploying their balance sheet to buy Bitcoin, and instead of holding fiat currency, and some with the goal of accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible. Particularly then in the last year, we've seen people realize that, well, Bitcoin is not the only asset that makes a ton of sense to hold on your balance sheet. So we've seen a number of these, now the phrasing or the wording for it is a digital asset treasury company. So we've seen a number of these DATs focused on Ethereum, on Solana, on a couple of other crypto assets. And at BNC, we're the first and largest really to be focused entirely on BNB, which is the native cryptocurrency of the BNB chain ecosystem. And to me, and we'll get into this, there's a very special opportunity that exists here, and one of the reasons why we're locked in focusing on BNB over any of the other crypto assets.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know BNB, the crypto, and I have seen it. And how long you guys been in there? Because today alone, BNB, it's up 2%. After last night. I don't know how far it went down last night with everything that went on, but how long have you guys been in that? Was just a recent acquirement this year?
Yeah, so we completed a PIPE transaction for CEA Industries, raising about $500 million. This was early August of this year. And then in the last couple of months, we've been executing on our stated strategy to accumulate, or the goal is to accumulate 1% of the BNB supply by the end of the year as a starting point. And we've just announced this past week that we're at 480,000 BNB, which was valued, I think, over $650 million at the time of the announcement. So we've been executing and on accumulating the BNB as we stated, and the reason for it is, as I had alluded to, that in terms of crypto assets, I think there's something very special about BNB. It started initially 8 years ago and has been known by many as Binance Coin. And Binance is referring to the largest cryptocurrency exchange on the planet. It's rebranded and evolved into BNB chain 5 years ago. And actually, since it was introduced over the last 8 years, and then over the last 5 years, and even in the last 3 months since starting this strategy, BNB has managed to outperform most of the large crypto assets. It's even outperformed Bitcoin for that entire period.
There is one question, and maybe this is a little bit off topic, but it's still on the same thing. And maybe this is something I've been meaning to ask somebody, and you seem like a really good expert on this since you already have 650 million. So at this point, you're actually doing it. BNB decreases in circulating supply. Like their total supply decreases, which creates, I understand that from the standpoint, it does makes the value number go up. At $1,100 right now, the more of a decreased supply, it could be at 1,500 if it decreases enough just on its own. But why is that? Why does that happen? The Bitcoin doesn't really decrease in their total supply.
Right. So that's one of the really special aspects and characteristics of BNB. So BNB, I think, compared to, and another way to phrase it is, it has this digital scarcity, which is quite different than a lot of the other crypto assets. I mean, Bitcoin does as well, and Bitcoin has a finite supply, and there's no inflation to it. Ethereum, Solana, some of the other large crypto assets have an inflation mechanism of anywhere from 1% to 7% per year, and the total market cap grows, or the total supply grows. Now, BNB, it used to be and have a burn mechanism based on the revenue of Binance. That's actually evolved so that now it's a two-part burn mechanism based on the activity of on BNB chain. And so one way to think about this buyback, it's kind of like a stock buyback of a company. So this is where the comparison to a Berkshire Hathaway can make sense, where it's as it grows in value, as it grows in usage, and we see more and more adoption, the expected amount that's burned every quarter has grown. So I just posted something recently this week. We're expecting pretty soon the 33rd quarterly burn to occur on BNB. I believe the last 4 quarters averaged over $1 billion per quarter burnt of the currency. So essentially, again, like I said, it's like a share buyback. So as that happens, and it continuously reduces the supply outstanding and actually makes the BNB that each person is holding, worth more. And so the total supply, it started off around 200 million. It's currently below 140 million. And over the next 4 or 5 years, the expectation is that the supply will get reduced to 100 million over time. And then actually, just to add to that, so I think, like I said, the most recent burn was just over $1 billion. I'm expecting the latest burn, which should be announced anytime now, to be somewhere between 1.5 and $2 billion.
I'm starting to realize that I'm buying the wrong coin.
Yeah.
I'm starting to slowly come to terms that I might be buying the wrong coin, and you got a leg up on. You kind of see the future here. So,
well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but no, yeah. Just since you said that, listen, something to chime in on. Look, like I've been in the crypto world a long time, and my approach is always just trying to very genuinely share with people my excitement, what I see. I'm always trying to find what people are excited about, and which opportunities and which things people would hold on to for the long term. I've successfully managed to orange pill, which means to kind of open people's eyes to Bitcoin, quite a few people over the last 10, 12 years. I've also managed to BNB pill people for the in the recent future, or sorry, in the recent past, and that I intend to BNB pill quite a few more people in the near future, and I've successfully managed to BNB pill myself. So everything I say is quite genuine.
Yeah, no, I believe you, man. I actually, while we're on the thing, I'm having it getting looked up right now while we're here. You're because that was one of the things I always wondered why BNB was decreasing, but now I fully have a full grasp on it. When is gonna be like it stopped burning? When it gets to like 18 million, 20 million, like Bitcoin?
When it gets sorry, with Bitcoin or BNB?
BNB, when does it stop burning? When does it stop?
Well, there's a mechanism in place where at 100 million is where the supply reduction will cease at the moment. But even that, I expect that could be an upgrade. And this is a situation that could occur 5 years from now, right? And we could see an upgrade to the kind of mechanism where the burn continues from there, if it all makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So with 650 million, what is the next player? Are you looking to acquire more companies strategically?
So, I think what's interesting now, like I've been describing it, is we're very much in this accumulation phase. So part of the goal here is, we're running a company that's goal is to accumulate more of this underlying asset, right? We've identified a very special asset for some reasons we've gone into, and more that we'll discuss. So the goal is to own a lot of BNB and to give investors exposure to BNB in a way that they really haven't been able to before through a regulated public company, NASDAQ listed. BNB, another kind of interesting metaphor that I came up with just to give people a sense of the opportunity. In almost every single market, right? If you look at Apple, Facebook, Google, the leading company in each of its verticals is publicly listed. Those are trillion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar companies, right? And they have US investors, they have global investors, and they have users from all over the world, right? Now, in the crypto world, the single biggest company is likely to be Binance. Binance itself has retreated. They're not in the US right now. So it's potentially, if it was publicly listed, it might be a 500 billion to $1 or $2 trillion company. And there also is no US users. So it's managed to grow to that size without having a significant presence in the US. If it was listed in the US, and if it did have US users, it's possible that the value could be a third to 50% higher even.
That's crazy. So right now, what is the amount of users that you would say, maybe you don't have that, and we say that are US users?
Yeah, so I think Binance on their site, they publish their pretty in real time their user numbers to be plus or minus 290 million globally. And in the US, the largest exchange is Coinbase. And so I believe Coinbase is somewhere between kind of 25 and 50 million users. So Binance itself is between maybe 6 and 10 times larger. If you look at CoinMarketCap and almost the volumes on Binance in almost every trading pair are at least 5 to 10 times larger than Coinbase or almost any other exchange.
I can't even buy Binance on Coinbase though.
Exactly. So that's another big part of this opportunity is that BNB is not available and not easily accessible for US investors and US users. So
why is that?
It just US exchanges haven't listed Binance. The only one that did was Kraken, but Kraken's significantly smaller. Kraken, I believe, has plus or minus between 5 and 10 million users today.
Okay.
So for all of the other people in the US that want a safe way to buy into or get exposure to BNB, we think that BNC is the best way for them to do it. And also there's a difference, another way, stepping back to how I explain the opportunity for these digital asset treasury companies. If you or I right now, we buy into an ETF, a Bitcoin ETF, for example.
Yeah.
And the price over the next 3 to 5 years goes up or down. After that period, if the price goes up or down, we have the same amount of Bitcoin that we purchased, right? So Bitcoin could go from 100K to 300K, but we still have 1 Bitcoin approximately, okay? With the digital asset treasury, the stated goal, and if the management team's effective at actually acting on their kind of mandate, is to accumulate the amount of that underlying Bitcoin or BNB per share. So it's possible that when you buy into this, over the course of 3 to 5 years, as the price goes up or down, if the Bitcoin goes from 100K to 300K, that you don't just have 1 Bitcoin, but maybe you have 1.2 or 1.5 or 2 times as much. So similarly, with what we're trying to do at BNC, our goal is actually, it's not just to accumulate more BNB for the company, it's to accumulate more BNB per share for all of the investors.
Okay. Wow, that's I think you're on to something. Definitely with the BNB being untapped, and if it does get big in the US market, you would be so far ahead of the curve that I just can't imagine what your stock would be at this point. That's a you're far advanced. You're maybe when do you think BNB would be available to users? When they're gonna allow that? Because I can't even buy one thing. It's not even tradable on Coinbase.
Right. And imagine, this is another thing. Like I like looking for overlooked, hard to understand, or misunderstood opportunities. Right. To me, like I said, I'd never seen something like this where the biggest company in a space isn't in the U.S. market, and the U.S. users aren't allowed to get exposure to it. It's also like, I'd say when I think about it, like to your point of when this might be available in the U.S. more so, well, our goal as a company is to accumulate a significant amount of BNB and grow the BNB per share for our investors before that happens. But my bet is those are upside catalysts, right? So if Binance is able to expand to the U.S. market, if U.S. users, and there was recently a ruling by the CFTC to potentially allow U.S. investors to access all of the offshore international crypto exchanges. So if that happens, if BNB gets listed on more U.S. exchanges like Coinbase or Gemini, Gemini just went public. A couple friends of mine, the Winklevoss twins, who I've known really from the beginning of the space, so I'm super proud of them. And there's definitely a number of upside catalysts that I see, and that's, as an investor, an operator, that's part of the reason why I'm betting heavily on BNB to outperform.
That's amazing. So you got this revenue with massive upside coming in. You're acquiring other companies. What is the next 2 or 3 quarters look like? What should investors should be looking at? Because I know you have a few things you're saying that you're putting out right now. I know you said you're trying to get 1% of the total supply of BNB. What else should it be looking at for your stock?
Sure. So this is where we're definitely like approaching in a kind of a patient and thoughtful way. The idea here is keep the operations of the company boring, be very disciplined with our purchases and kind of growing our treasury and giving a chance for kind of our balance sheet and the BNB per share to kind of grow over time. And so we had been, we're making announcements pretty regularly of all of the additional purchases of BNB that we've been making. I've also said publicly quite a few times, like we're buying BNB every single day, right? So we're pretty active and regular and giving investors, the confidence that we're out there accumulating every day. And so that's definitely something that, plan to continue. And then the other thought is, being more and more involved in the overall BNB chain ecosystem. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. Some of it is, I was just in Asia for the last couple of weeks. I was at some events in Korea for Korean Blockchain Week and in Singapore for Token 2049, both 2 of the biggest and most active or most important crypto conferences around the world. Really, for me, I was speaking at a number of events and just getting tapped into the Asian crypto communities. Now, BNB has been a very well-known kind of story and opportunity and a very well-liked asset in a lot of the Asian markets. There's actually a significant kind of momentum for other digital asset treasuries in some of those markets, in Korea, in Japan, in Hong Kong, maybe other markets in Southeast Asia, to also launch BNB-focused treasury companies. And for me, I look at it like a very collaborative approach. I'm out there, sharing and spreading the opportunity of BNB as an asset, helping people understand just the size and scale of the ecosystem and the opportunity to get exposure through BNC. I've been helping collaboratively some of the kind of CEOs and teams of these other treasury companies because I hope that they're going to be coming to market and successfully doing the same in some of these other capital markets, right? Because another thing that I see, which is kind of fascinating about this cycle and where we are, is I look at it like the piping of the entire kind of capital markets infrastructure is turned on to crypto for the first time, right? So in this year alone, we had Circle go public, which is the second largest stablecoin issuer. We had Bullish and Gemini, two large cryptocurrency exchanges in the US, and quite a few other companies that are following of crypto-related businesses. On the treasury side, outside of MicroStrategy, we've had potentially $25 to $50 billion raised through pipes, through SPACs, to go into treasury companies to accumulate Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, Solana, and a couple of other crypto assets, right? I think now that this kind of mechanism is open, I'm expecting there to be, I was saying 50 to 100 billion. Now I think more like 100 to 200 billion of capital is going to flow into the crypto markets through the capital markets around the world over the next year.
I've been seeing that. I think me personally, crypto in general is going to be maybe over 20 trillion, 25 trillion, maybe in 10, 15, maybe close to 20 years. But what you're doing, it is kind of like the Warren Buffett of crypto and slowly discipline, acquire. I'm pretty sure you're kind of are you kind of like tailoring your business to that, to be that way, where one day in 30 years from now, your share price is like 100,000 or something? Is that kind of where you're headed to? Because it sounds like it, because you're going to have, in a few years, I just don't see Binance not be able to touch the U.S. market in the next 3 or 4 years. I just can't see it. With everything that's happening with crypto, people, once that pendulum swing to the other side, people will start figuring out, wait, untouched Binance. Let's get on that. That's not, people figure stuff out quickly. Your upside potential just on a dormant, already volatile, already great asset, crypto, like, what is the long-term play here? What is the big acquisition? Where do you start seeing the residual dividends that shareholders can say, like, yo, this guy has a legit plan?
Well, I think this comes from, people in the crypto space, as we were talking earlier about, like, it's a very reactive and, responsive. It's a 24/7 market. And so, we had a lot of volatility yesterday since some of the China tariff announcements, and really one of the biggest deleveraging events that's ever happened in the crypto space, with the market sell-off and a lot of leverage unwinds. But at the same time, I've been in the crypto world a long time, and when you zoom out, there's been 4 or 5 days like that, and every single one turned into being incredible buying opportunities, and the market was much higher post that. So, nothing. There's no single event or sell-off that shakes my conviction, medium and long term, in the industry. And similarly, like, stepping back to what I said about Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor didn't grow his balance sheet and grow the value of his company from 1 billion to over 100 billion, all right, in a single year, in a single quarter. He did it through steady execution of his strategy and resilience. People have been skeptical of his business, of the business model, from the beginning. And people thought that, it was going to fail. People thought the Bitcoin that he was buying was going to go down in price and everything was going to collapse. Well, he's managed to prove them wrong and has grown the value of the company over 100 times in the last 5 years. We're taking a similar approach. This is something that I see, as you pointed out, seeing the market of the crypto assets going to 20 trillion. Well, we're just under 4 trillion today. I've been saying Bitcoin makes up a little more than half of that. And if you look at when I first got involved in the industry, one of the kind of goalposts we were putting out for Bitcoin was the value or total market cap of gold. Gold was about 5 to 8 trillion then. Well, gold has been on a massive tear, doing very well this year. Now gold is around 15 to 20 trillion. So one of the things I've been saying is actually I look at it like that's the next hurdle for Bitcoin to get to. So for Bitcoin to grow from where it is today to the value of gold, it would have to go up kind of 7 to 10 times from here. So I would put it at 750 to 100 to 750,000 to $1 million per Bitcoin. Right now, along the way, as I said, BNB has managed to outperform Bitcoin for the past 5 years, 8 years, the past 3 months. I expect that to continue over the next 1 year, 5 years, everything. And so along the way, I think it's very, very possible that BNB achieves a market cap of anywhere from 1 to 5 trillion, right? And so in that scenario, that would allude to or lead to a BNB price of somewhere between kind of 10 to 50K per BNB.
I have to get more BNB. That's what I just reopened my B. Yeah, I got that's amazing, man. I really appreciate you coming on my show. I learned a lot on this interview, and it also shows me where the market is going. Definitely with all these crypto ETFs coming out, definitely with all these IPOs happening in the crypto space, that going on the stock market. I know there've been a lot of talks of, NASDAQ, S&P, Dow is starting to allow a lot of these crypto companies to start proving the stuff in the stock market. And I think that's great. And I think that's phenomenal. And I think that opens the door to a lot of things, because I know Fidelity is starting to refer to their high net worth clients Bitcoin. And eventually Binance was as well. So, man, honestly, I see the vision. I see I see the long-term vision. I can see I can see how you guys are going to have 6 or 7 different revenues coming your way. This is genius. I give you credit for it. You've been in the space long enough. Obviously, you're going to have something that is genius level like. But man, I'm really excited and when you come back on here for the future, really excited what you have next, man. So, what should we expect from you at the end of the year to come out?
All right. Well, listen, I think to close with that or with the thoughts there, I've been amazed at the strength and resilience of BNB chain. It touched a high recently of 1,300, pulled back. It's still, even on this pullback in the last 24 hours, BNB's kind of showing its resilience and outperforming against a lot of against Bitcoin, against a lot of the other large assets. There's real growth here. I'm expecting over the next quarters, like the most BNB burned in history this quarter, and by the end of the year, and then just seeing a lot of growth in the ecosystem, some of the decentralized exchanges like AsterDex. So when I think and look ahead to the end of the year, hopefully we're able to continue to execute on our goal to get to 1% of the BNB supply. And, just close with, that BNB really is like the most used asset in crypto and the least owned or understood in the US. And so, I see it as an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I see it as an incredible opportunity too. I want to say thank you to everybody watching, listening, that's going to tune in. Please check out BNC. There's going to be more. He's going to be coming out later on the year after a few things come out. And man, I'm excited. I'm going to start looking into BNB. Definitely going to be purchasing myself. But thank you so much, David, for coming on, and peace.
Thank you, Kenny, for having me.